on that offensive line, as it appears Browns GM Andrew Berry is bringing in left guard Chris Paul from the Washington Commanders. I'm very familiar with Chris Paul, being that I am a Commanders and Jaden Daniels fan as well. So I'm very familiar with.
No, I don't want Chris Paul. First of all, I never heard of the guy. I mean, have you heard of Chris Paul?
No.
How is this guy getting all this money? Nobody's heard of this.
Contingency plan. And when you're the Browns, you beggars can't be choosers. You can't be mad that you worried about a car payment and the interest rate is super high when you ain't got no way to get to work. Do you need to get to work? Yeah. Does this car payment worth it? Not really. But I can't take the bus 2 hours to wherever I work. So I need a car today. JD by Ryder. And this is it. Chris Paul, welcome to the team.
The haters are absolutely losing it right now. The moment the Browns brought in Chris Paul to protect Shedeur Sanders, panic started because deep down they know exactly what this move means. Shedeur is being set up to take over. Do you think this move proves the Browns are finally going Allen on Shedeur, or are rest haters still going to deny it? Let me know in the comments below. The reaction from the haters was immediate and honestly, it was embarrassing. The moment the Browns signed Chris Paul, people like Bulls started acting like the team just picked a random name off the street. He literally admitted he had never even heard of the guy. And somehow that was supposed to prove the signing was bad. That logic is ridiculous. Just because someone doesn't recognize a player does not mean the player can't play. Meanwhile, people who actually follow the game know exactly what happened in Washington. Chris Paul was not some lucky backup who stumbled into a job. He earned it. Early in his career, he rotated in and out of the lineup waiting for the right moment. When that moment came, he didn't waste it. The Commanders had already invested in another young guard they expected to start. But once the competition began, Chris Paul simply played better. He won the spot straight up. No politics, no favors, just better performance on the field. And once he took control of that position, he never gave it back. His growth that season was huge. Week after week, he improved, showing strength in protection and a much stronger understanding of the line. By the end of the year, he looked like a completely different player compared to earlier seasons. That kind of jump does not happen by accident. It happens when a player finally gets the opportunity, proves he belongs. Cleveland saw that progress, and Andrew Berry clearly understood the value before the rest of the loud critics even bothered to look. That is exactly why Bush's point makes far more sense than the noise coming from the haters. The Browns are not sitting in a perfect situation where they can casually wait for the ideal option to fall into their lap. They need protection now, especially with Shedeur stepping into a huge role. When a team is trying to build stability on the offensive line, waiting around while arguing about price can turn into a disaster. Sometimes you pay a little more because the need is urgent and the opportunity is right in front of you. Chris Paul checks the boxes the Browns needed. He already proved he can beat competition for a starting job. He already proved he can improve quickly once he gets real playing time. And most important, he brings the exact type of protection a young quarterback needs to succeed. This move was not random. It was calculated. Andrew Berry saw a player who fought his way into a starting role and kept it through performance, and he moved before other teams could jump in. The critics yelling the loudest are the same ones who never watched his development in Washington. Meanwhile, the Browns just added a guard who is trending upward at the right moment. And that is exactly the kind of move that helps a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders succeed. The panic from the haters says everything. Deep down, they know this move strengthens the Browns far more than they want to admit.
They're probably going to have an inexperienced quarterback. They're going to need to be excellent at running the ball. Their offensive line last year was terrible at run blocking. So I'm not giving a contract that blows me away to a guy who's not good at run blocking.
Well, you're burying the lead on this.
Yeah.
He plays left guard.
Oh, well, are you saying that means that
Joe Batonio?
I mean, yeah, we kind of assumed that and kind of knew that was probably where this was headed.
Yeah.
But if they're paying big money on a left guard, that sort of does it not sort of seal the deal on Joel's future?
If Joel is not coming back, and I think they begged and pleaded with him, he may be taking his time. But if they giving this dude money, that means they don't have any other options.
Well, there's going to be other options. You don't have to sign the most expensive guard who's a terrible run blocker. Why is that? Why is the solution to always pay the most expensive guy?
Because the Browns throw money at their problems.
That's stupid.
As an experienced quarterback, that was the phrase Bull jumped to the second the Browns added Chris Paul. The obsession is getting ridiculous. The moment Shedeur is involved, the same critics suddenly start acting like every move the Browns make is a mistake. It does not matter what the team does.
Draft a player, they complain.
Sign protection for quarterback, they complain again. At this point, their fixation with Shedeur honestly needs to be studied. These are the same voices who spent months pushing every other name possible. Malik Willis was suddenly the answer. Anthony Richardson was supposed to save everything. Anyone but Shedeur. That was the real agenda. And now that Cleveland is clearly building the line in front of Shedeur, the panic is obvious. Bull starts the argument by admitting he barely knows the player. That alone should have ended the conversation. If you don't know the player, how can you confidently say he is not worth the deal? Yet somehow, minutes later, the same guy is speaking like a full scouting report expert. First, the player is someone nobody knows. Then, suddenly, he becomes a terrible run blocker. That switch is insane. How do you go from not recognizing a player at all to declaring him one of the worst guards in football? That kind of flip tells you the criticism was never about the player. It was about finding excuse to attack a move that helped Shedeur Sanders. Then Jason Lloyd joins the negativity and the conversation turns into pure doom and gloom. Everything becomes a disaster in their version of reality. They start suggesting the Browns are just throwing money around because they have no plan. That argument falls apart the second you actually look at what Chris Paul did last season. His pass protection numbers were among the best at his position. Meanwhile, Cleveland's offensive line last year did not have a single lineman close to the top of the league in pass blocking. Not one. So, the Browns go out and add a player who has already proven he can protect the quarterback. And that turns into criticism. The logic makes no sense. Protection is exactly what a young quarterback needs. You cannot develop a passer if he is running for his life every snap. The Browns clearly saw a guard who improved quickly once he became a starter, and they moved before other teams could grab him. That is called fixing a weakens yet Bull, and Jason treated it like a mistake before the player even puts on the jersey. That constant negativity is why fans are tired of hearing them talk. Every move is bad. Every decision is wrong. Every situation becomes a crisis in their eyes. And the funniest part show the story keeps changing depending on what helps their argument in that moment. First, Bull says he has never heard of Chris Paul. That should end the entire debate right there. If you do not follow the player closely, maybe take a step back before judging the move. Instead, the criticism grows louder with every sentence. Suddenly, the contract is too big. Suddenly, the Browns desperate. Suddenly, the player is terrible at everything. It becomes obvious very quickly that the goal isn't analysis. The goal is attacking anything connected to Shedeur Sanders. That is why fans call these two the kings of doom and gloom. Every discussion turns into negativity. Tekken Shedeur's name comes up. But the reality is simple. The Browns needed stronger protection. Andrew Berry fouls a guard who fought for a starting job and proved himself once he got it. That is a smart move. The loud critics can keep shouting, but the facts remain the same. Cleveland just added a player trending upward at the exact position that protects their young quarterback, and that is exactly why the haters sound so angry right now.
If I'm looking at it, do I love it? No, but we always knew we needed 7 linemen. He's a lineman. He can do a couple of things good. It's either that or KT Levinston.
You know, some guys you want to sign right away. But a lot of times in the NFL free agency, you get bargains late. Like solid players who fall through the cracks you get for little money. The Bengals signed Dalton Reisner last year. They re-signed him now right before. Like, he's a veteran guard. He's solid, not amazing. He's solid. They paid him nothing. The Browns should do something like that at guard.
Well, I'm curious to see
what the price is.
Well, we haven't heard Tevin Jenkins' name at all. And if they liked him enough to bench Wyatt late in the year, wouldn't it make sense that you would like him enough to bring him back? At least you have some sort of track record with him.
Gee, Bush understood that. He basically said it straight. You need bodies up front. You need players who can handle multiple roles. And Chris Paul checks that box. The Browns were not looking for some fantasy perfect signing. They were looking for someone who can contribute right now. That is how teams fix problems step by step, piece by piece. And that is exactly what Andrew Berry is doing. The goal is simple. Make life easier for Shedeur the moment he steps onto the field. Bull, on the other hand, keeps drifting into these theoretical stories about waiting for some magical bargain that might appear later. That sounds nice in theory, but football teams cannot run their roster on hope. Waiting around for a cheap option that may or may not show up can turn into a disaster very quickly. The Browns are not in a position to gamble like that. They already saw how bad things looked when the Lions struggled last season. The run game suffered, the pocket collapsed too often, and the offense never found ZHYTHM. Fixing that weakness should happen immediately, not months later after hoping someone falls into your lap. Cleveland clearly decided they weren't going to sit around and cross their fingers. They saw a player trending upward, a guard who finally got his chance and proved he belonged, and they made the move before other teams jumped in. That is called being proactive. It shows the front office understands the urgency of protecting their quarterback. The discussion about bringing back older or cheaper options also misses the bigger picture. Familiarity alone does not fix a problem. Just because a team has used a player before does not mean that player is the best answer moving forward. The Browns needed improvements, not comfort. Andrew Berry is clearly focused on building a stronger wall in front of Shedeur Sanders, and that requires bringing in players who are still developing and getting better each season. And Chris Paul fits description. He fought for a starting job, won it, and kept it through performance. That kind of mentality matters on an offensive line. It brings competition. It raises the level of the entire group. When a young quarterback steps into the huddle, he needs to know the players in front of him are capable of holding the line. That is why this signing matters. Cleveland is not sitting still anymore.
Have a lot of young players. They've signed 10 guys last year, and all of them rookies played. Yeah, all of them. Yeah. They're going to sign more dudes again, and all them rookies going to play. Yeah. So you're going to have cases where you may sign a guy, and he may not necessarily be a guy that's going to be playing in the middle of the season. But what you need up front is you need bodies. Because at the end of the year, we were signing dudes off the practice squad.
But you don't sign a guy who's going to be overpriced for bodies. You sign bodies for bodies.
They don't. That's funny. There was a song called "Body to Body" once by Chris Brown, but never mind.
Have a lot of young players. STV signed 10 guys last year, and all them rookies played. All of them, they going to sign more dudes again, and all them rookies going to play. So you're going to have cases where you sign a guy, and he may not necessarily be a guy that's going to be playing in the middle of the season, but what you need up front is you need bodies. Because at the end of the year, we were signing dudes off the practice squad, but you don't sign a guy who's going to be overpriced for bodies. Oh well, you sign bodies for Bodie, they don't. That's funny. There was a song called Body to Body once by Chris Brown, but never mind. Bush is pointing out something very simple that some people are trying hard to ignore. The Browns are a young team right now. Last season alone, they brought in a large group of rookies, and many of those rookies ended up playing real snaps during the year. That tells you everything about where this roster Cleveland is building, not standing still. When a team is that young, depth becomes extremely important. Injuries happen. Players miss games, and when that happens, you cannot panic and start grabbing random players off the street. That is exactly what happened late last season when the Browns were forced to sign players from practice squads just to fill spots. That situation was not stable. That situation was desperate. Bush is basically saying the front office learned from that mistake. They want more real players in the building before the season even starts. That way, when the pressure hits, the team already has options ready. And when you are preparing for a quarterback like Shedeur to take a major role, that preparation becomes even more important. Another thing Bush made clear is that not every signing has to be a superstar move. That idea confuses some critics who think every new player must instantly become the centerpiece of the roster.
Football does not work like that.
Teams need layers. They need starters, backups, and players who can step in when things go wrong. Offensive lines especially need that kind of depth because injuries hit that position group all the time. So, bringing in someone like Chris Paul is not about one flashy headline. It is about strengthening the entire line. It is about making sure the Browns are never stuck in a situation again where they are scrambling for bodies in December. When Shedeur steps on the field, the last thing the Browns want is chaos in front of him. They want stability. They want multiple players who can handle the job if someone goes down. That is exactly the kind of thinking G. Bush was explaining. And this connects directly to Shedeur and bigger plan for the offense. A young quarterback cannot succeed if the line in front of him keeps falling. APA protection, depth, and stability all matter. Cleveland clearly understands that now. They are stacking linemen. The team is not one injury away from another disaster. Some players will start, some will rotate, and some may not even see the field right away. That is normal. The goal is to build a strong group that can survive the long NFL season. G. Bush understands this reality, while others keep pretending every signing must immediately look perfect. The Browns are thinking about the full season and about protecting their future quarterback. That is the real story here. They're building a stronger wall in front of Shedeur. So when his moment comes, the offense has a real chance to succeed instead of repeating the problems that hurt them last year anyways. The Browns just made a power move that protects Shedeur Sanders and shuts down the haters. Chris Paul is a gamble. He's a solution, and the young QB finally has the wall he needs. Smash that like button, hit subscribe. Stay locked in. You don't want to miss what Shedeur does.